How's it going, guys? Just before we start this episode today, I'm not going to take up much of your time because I know you want to get straight over to the episode, but just want to say thank you so much for being here, for listening in and watching this episode. Whatever your platform you're on, it makes a massive difference that you're here, and I know you're going to come away from it with something really good and useful. Just want to say quickly, though, that over the last few years doing this podcast and building it up, we have really gone from 0 to 100 in just the guest range, the editing, every element of it has just increased, and all of it has really been down to the incredible subscriber base who have hit that subscribe button and supported me on this journey. And I'm going to ask you, please, if you could do the same today. Just hitting that subscribe button or that follow button, whatever platform you're on, makes a massive difference to the journey that I'm on with this podcast. And truly, every subscriber contributes to getting a bigger and a better and a more famous guest on the show, and it just makes everything possible. So guys, if you could please just do me the favor of hitting that subscribe button or a share or leaving a rating and a review, it makes a massive difference to this journey I'm on. So guys, thank you, and without further ado, let's get over to the episode. How's it going, guys? Welcome to episode 112 of Talk4, the Quickfire podcast, where we ask 4 great questions to unique and interesting people. Behind the mic today is your host, Louis Skupien. That's me. And let me introduce our special guest for today. Bryce Henson is going to be answering some questions today. So, Bryce, how you doing today? And welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, brother. Super fired up to be here, and let's go.
I know, man, it's going to be good. And it's been a little while since the last podcast. Had a few cancellations and a few reschedules, but glad to have you on. This is going to be a great talk, and I've seen all the stuff you're up to, and I think you've you got some great stuff to share. So, I like to start with a quick kind of introduction thing. So, elevator pitch style, 30 to 60 seconds ish, kind of, who you are, really, what your day job is, and just a little intro into that kind of life of you and the day-to-day routine.
Yeah, I love it. I am the CEO of Fit Body Bootcamp, which is an 8-figure international fitness franchise based here in the States. Our headquarters is in Los Angeles. We have about 300 locations throughout North America, primarily in the US and about 10% in Canada. And our global mission is to inspire fitness, change lives every day. We are battling the obesity epidemic, which is a big issue here in the States and actually globally for that matter. So super passionate about fitness, super passionate about health, but more importantly, also about business, being very pro-capitalism. So that way we can support our franchise partners, support our brand, and make it all work. So that's a little bit of the overview.
Really good stuff. And, there's so much, even just in that intro, that I want to dig into. And, I've laid out loads of groundwork to go over some of those subjects throughout this show. But I think the first thing I'd like to start with, really, to begin with, really is just a bit of backstory then. So how this all came about for you and just how all of this started. So I've heard, obviously, going over the website, going over some of the past stuff that you've done and news and podcasts and stuff. Heard a few snippets about a tough childhood, starting out in a trailer park in Georgia, fighting addiction, family issues. So let's unpack a bit of all that stuff and just go into a bit of background. So, tell us a bit about kind of what forged you into who you are today, how all this came about, and why those experiences turned out to be clearly positive in the grand scheme of things for you.
Yeah, I love it. Great question. And I'll give you the overview and feel free to plod along as we continue on. But the first decade of my life or so was very volatile. And I always say it was a blessing disguised as a tragedy. But the first 10 years, we lived with my father, who was a drug addict, addicted to gambling and alcohol, not the trifecta for a good family upbringing. Thankfully, my mother is an incredible soul and worked really hard to create stability in the household. But through a sequence of events, it was verbal abuse and then eventually turned physical abuse. We escaped out of that situation, and bless my mom's heart, she didn't have in the vision of raising 3 kids on her own. And without my grandma, we would have been in a tough situation. It would have been on the streets or even worse. So with, that particular situation, in hindsight, it was actually a blessing because it provided me an understanding of the value of relationships, understanding of work ethic, understanding of discipline, and the understanding of the teamwork aspect of life. And in this particular case, that transpired to business. And seeing my mom, work really hard to make ends meet, put food on the table, after a really challenging situation, having to overcome the adversity in terms of working with and living with my father. very challenging in many ways, but ultimately provided a lot of value in grit and character in my youth. And that's really a big kind of call to action that really shaped my philosophy on leadership. My philosophy is adversity is your advantage. And when I look back in my life, some of the biggest, adversities and challenges I face, which is probably very similar to, your audience listening or watching this right now. If you can manage that adversity, if you can push through the adversity, you'll grow, you'll get better, and you'll be better off for it. So I think that's really the story of my first 10 years, is battling through challenge, battling through adversity, and becoming better for it. So I'll probably stop there, and we'll continue to allow us to continue to
Yeah.
dive into the conversation.
So how old were you when that move happened then away from your father? And without going too deep into it, obviously, but whereabouts is that all now? Does he know who you are today? Does he know, what you've become now? Where are we with that?
Oh, great question. So I was about 10 years old when that kind of volatility ended, if you will. And then we got out, we moved to the state of Michigan, which is about 12-hour drive, north, very different culture, even still in the States. No, I would say I actually reached out to him about 10 years ago. I hadn't actually had that vision, but my therapist, when learning about my story, my childhood, his strong recommendation from a closer perspective was to reach out to him. So I actually did. I had a 10-minute conversation with him about 10 years ago. At that point, I'm in my early 30s. I'm a 40-year-old man at the time of this recording now. And it was interesting. In many ways, it was very anticlimactic. So it's not the warm and fuzzy, rosy story that, potentially sometimes the audience is listening for. However, what it did is it provided closure. What it really taught me in that moment is just because someone treats you one way does not mean that you have to treat that person in that exact way. You can always take the higher road. So that was really the big learning lesson I had from that experience. My mom's been able to share some conversations that she's had with him because she had still had to, work with him in terms of child custody and all that over the years. So he has a good understanding, I guess, of some of the success I've made, but that's really not important. I think the big message was, being able to heal your own wounds, being able to face, adversity head on, and being able to provide closure is a really, really good thing. So that's an update in terms of that particular dynamic.
It's interesting, man. It's a hell of a thing that you've done to turn that kind of a thing around. And I think that with people who go down these kind of paths and people who have these kind of upbringings, they've got like a choice. They can either kind of let it build them up, or they can kind of follow that same path. So, going through all of that, coming out of it where you are now, who were you looking up to in all of that? Was it mum? Was it grandma? Who was the kind of mentor, if you will? Who was the person that you were looking up to throughout all of this? And where did the kind of like, I guess, where did the entrepreneur come from in all of that? So where did you find that entrepreneurial spark to start your own business? And, where does that kind of, where did you pick up those tools, I guess?
Great question. Well, I think if I look back, I couldn't have told you at this period of time, but the frustration, the confusion that actually created rage and frustration and anger, which I could have taken that down a bad path, but I decided to refocus that and focus it towards the light, trying to make myself a man of means, a man of prosperity, a man of skills where I could add value to myself and family. So that's the outlook that I took in that particular situation. It created a lot of grit, determination, willingness to win. To answer your question about my mentors, I'm a really big believer that, we should all have mentors. There's people that we need to look up to in life, but typically speaking, it doesn't have to be a one size fits all. What I learned from my mother is how to build relationships, how to love and care about people. Now, she's not overly successful from a professional perspective. She hasn't built businesses and empires, and that's okay. I don't look for her guidance for that, but I look for her guidance on how to treat people, how to build relationships. My grandma was just a huge asset to our lives and to my siblings' lives, being able to take us in. I also learned about how to treat people, how to care for your family, how to build strong relationships. Now, from a business perspective, I didn't have a family where, we were overly successful in business and entrepreneur. So I started, looking at other people, on the internet, authors, leaders from afar, a gentleman named John Maxwell, who's a really strong leadership expert, a guy named Elon Musk, who, clearly has shaped from a visionary and entrepreneur perspective, our planet in in estimation, a very positive way. So, I started, after I go through that process, and still to this day, I look for mentors that are really strong strong in a specific skill or area that I'm looking to develop in, and I really go focus long and deep on that. So if you're listening to this, maybe you are inspired by my business success or my leadership success. Great, I'm an incredible mentor guide for that. But if you're looking to learn Mandarin Chinese, I'm probably not the best person to learn from. So I think the call to action, the message that I want to really hit, Louis, for you and your audience in that particular question is mentorship is so important. And it's good to have multiple mentors. Figure out what skill, what quality, what's the deficit that you are trying to, I guess, resolve in your life, and go find out specifically and learn from someone who has done what you want to do in that particular way. And that's the value of a mentorship. That's the value of a guide.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And that's a really good piece there. And I think, we spoke about it before we came on the podcast here and stuff, when I was kind of talking a bit about what, a podcast really is. And I think that people who come and listen to the show, they're not going to come and listen to an hour of us rambling and come away with 1,000 different things to apply and be like, hey, this is the ultimate, thing that's applying to everyone, because there's no one size fits all, right? But when you go into these kind of things, there's always going to be a few points and a few nuggets that they can take away from this and think, hey, you know what? Actually, that applies to me. Or, hey, maybe this is going to change my perspective a bit. I need to kind of go in on this a bit more too. So I totally agree with that. And especially now in the digital world and with podcasts being out everywhere, we do have that freedom to kind of cherry pick a little bit with who we listen to. But in terms of that, how do you pick who you listen to nowadays in this kind of a digital world, man? Like, there's so much noise out there. How do you avoid kind of having the wrong mentor, I guess? So, if you were talking to a young lad, young girl nowadays, other than yourself, obviously, who's clearly going to be a great mentor, get into fitness, get fit, all great advice. But, how do you avoid going down the trap of like listening to someone who maybe is, toxic or the wrong influence in you, and pick someone who's going to be like a good influence nowadays?
Yeah, great question. Well, I think first and foremost, the beauty in today's age is, the internet. You can, find and research and really get a good understanding of the credibility, of any particular mentor or guide that you're looking to follow. So, doing some research, putting some elbow grease in and really spending some time is always a really great strategy. But then, Louis, number two would be take an inventory and figure out what specific skill set you're looking for. Sometimes people want to gather success, but then really it's about breaking it down. Okay, what does business success means? There's a lot of ways you can be successful in business. From a skill set perspective, if someone's trying to generate wealth and build, an empire at a business, then I would say learning leadership, learning sales, and learning marketing are three very high impact and high income skills. So if you're looking to, again, be a very successful entrepreneur, I would take an inventory. What skill sets specifically do you need to master? And then go out and find mentors specifically in that particular zone of genius. So a lot of times what I see is, people, they, want to be successful, but they don't really take a quick moment to realize what skill sets they need to acquire, where they have a void. And because of that, they start looking for everywhere and they don't find a solution. To your point, that's a one size fits all, which doesn't exist. So be very, very clear what skill set you're looking for, and then be very targeted to learn that skill. And for me to put a bow on this, there's many mentors that even to this day come and go. If I'm really trying to learn about negotiation, I'm really, for example, learning from a gentleman, Chris Voss, right now, who's wrote a few books on negotiation. That'll eventually I'll come back to negotiation, but maybe in 6 months right now, I don't need to focus on that. I need to focus more on leadership or marketing. So there can be some ebbs and flows. And I think it's just about getting very, very crystal clear what you're trying to learn from that person, then move on as you continue to learn.
Yeah. Is that the guy from Masterclass? Everything in life is a negotiation. I've seen that advert so many times. Is that the one you're talking about?
That's it. Yeah. And he's in Masterclass, but he's also written a book called Never Split the Difference. And I'm rereading that book right now. But yes, we're talking about the same gentleman.
Nice, man. I'll have to check it out. Yeah, I've just seen so many ads that I think I kind of avoided it, but the masterclass thing looks great. So yeah, I'm gonna have a look at that for sure. But yeah, I want to get into the business side of things now and how you started that. But the last thing I want to do quickly on kind of backstory subjects is just round it back one more time to just getting out of there. So, when you have a household like that, when you have a dad who's, struggling with these things, I think sometimes people may find that they follow similar paths, or that they have that kind of allure to almost go down the same bad path. So, from what I'm seeing, what I'm hearing and stuff in your journey, It looks really good. Looks really tickety boo. You mentioned a little bit about therapy, so it sounds like you've got all of it locked in. But were there hard moments there? Did you have to fight a few, personal things throughout this journey, or was it kind of a clear shot to, business success for you? So yeah, walk me through that a bit.
Yeah, definitely not a clear shot to business success. Had many false starts. And it's interesting. I kicked off this podcast, Louis, about, how my father had his own issues in terms of drugs, alcohol addiction. As it turns out, the cycle repeated. So I'm actually a recovering alcoholic myself. And interestingly for me, it took me a long time to realize this because I stopped drinking when I was 33 years old. In December of 2016 was the last time that I drank alcohol. And for me, when I looked at an alcoholic, I thought of someone who drank every day, drank out of a brown paper bag. They didn't have a job. They were living underneath a bridge or homeless or even worse. And certainly there's many alcoholics that fit that category, but there's also alcoholics that were just like me that were very high functioning alcoholics. I would actually refer to myself more as a binge drinker. I wouldn't drink daily. I never did. In fact, as I, got through my 20s and early 30s, I would drink less frequently, but I would drink more aggressively. And what I realized is from a genetic makeup, once I have one drink, I have no governor to stop. And I think that's a really, it was a very big aha and a very humbling moment to realize that, hey, after all the challenges that myself, my family had to endure because of my father, well, as it turns out, genetically, I'm just my disposition is the exact same thing. And it was a very, very humbling moment in time to come to that realization. And without going to the full granular detail of my rock bottom moment, what I realized was that I wasn't showing up for myself and my team, my family. And then to compound on this, there was a family member who I love and adore to this day. And what I realized, she was going through really challenges with her struggle with addiction, et cetera. And we worked together, and it was clearly getting to a point where it was affecting her ability to work and our ability to work together. And ultimately, I had a conversation. I said, "Hey, forever is a long time, but we need to remove alcohol from your life because it's affecting your life. It's also affecting our business." And Louis, I'll never forget, once I had that conversation, I went home, and it was a very heavy conversation, knowing my challenges with this person that I absolutely love and adore, but also knowing my challenges as well. And I went to sleep and I woke up, and Louis, something changed in me. And it was like the weight of the world. And what I realized was that our society, and can understand why, will forgive criminals, but we don't forgive hypocrites. And who am I to impart this particular rule or wisdom on someone that I love and adore, rightfully so. But if I couldn't keep my own side of my street clean, if that makes sense, from a hypothetical kind of word picture perspective. And what I realized is that if I'm going to be a leader of others, I need to be a leader of myself. And that was the moment in time where I stopped drinking alcohol. So I share that from a very vulnerable perspective, but there's a lot of takeaways there. Number one, the first, I guess, pillar of leadership is leading yourself. So leading yourself, making sure that you're taking action decisions that are going to increase the probability of success. And when you realize you have a vice or an issue, you need to remove that at all costs. Number two, it's uncomfortable going through change. It's uncomfortable going through growth. It's uncomfortable, facing your demons. But you need to do this because bliss and growth is on the other side of challenge. So those are a couple, different big takeaways I had from that experience. And the last one is just, having a humble mindset, realizing that, sometimes things are bigger than you. Sometimes you need to ask for help. And I certainly had to do that as well, because not only did I make that decision to remove alcohol from my life in December 2016, but I actually had to join a support group because I realized I needed support. I needed mentorship. And it's okay sometimes to ask for help, which is probably the third, message and takeaway that I have for your audience in my moment of being vulnerable. But I share that because there's someone listening to this or watching this right now going through a low point. Maybe it's drugs, maybe it's alcohol, maybe it's some sort of addiction. But the thing is that's inhibiting your ability to be successful. So take an inventory, ask for help. It's literally the best thing that's ever happened to me, even though it was an extremely challenging, moment in time, and to kind of bring it full circle, realizing that adversity is your advantage, my friend. And that's my message from this particular story.
Great message, man. I love that piece. That's great. Could you have ever done that by yourself? Or did that have to be teamwork to get you through that?
Well, it's interesting. I think the first part of the journey was with myself. It was low, it was desperate, it was, going through my own demons. So that the first part was with myself. However, the second part of the equation was the support, was the mentorship, was the group support. So I would say, I definitely needed support. And that's why for me, kind of coming full circle, I'm in the fitness space, I'm in the coaching space when you break it down, because what I realized is people need accountability, people need support, especially for behavioral change. If you're listening to this podcast, if you're watching this, you clearly want something else. You want more success, you want more fulfillment, which means you need to make some changes in your behavior, which also means holding yourself accountable, getting a coach, tapping into a group support is really, really mission critical. That's what's worked for me. That's what worked for my clients. And I know very confident, Louis, that'll work for you and your audience as well.
I love it. That's great, man. Thanks for the advice. I really appreciate the openness and the depth there. That's great. Where does fitness come into this then? So obviously you started a business within the industry, but where does fitness come from for you, I guess? Like there's so many people who I know personally to a very, very close level who found fitness and that helped them through their own hard times. And their fitness journey was like the thing that got them out of a dark place, or that was the thing that was almost like that sort of, how someone might have like they hold a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety, and then they have like a release, and they found that release within fitness. So in your journey with fitness, before we get into like the business side of fitness for you, did you have a fitness journey like that? Can you go into that a bit? And when did you kind of find that side of everything for yourself?
Yeah, I love it. And actually, that's the first part of the question that, when I'm asked, how did you build and, grow and become a CEO of an international fitness franchise? I first say it started with my own fitness. So to kind of pick up the story, when I was 10 years old, we got out of Dodge, we moved to the North, a state in Michigan, which is the north part of the country where my, grandma lived. And, I lived there for a period of about 14 years, and a lot of challenge, but ultimately, a lot of growth as well. And when I graduated, put myself through university, I was 21 years young, ended up getting a job out in Southern California. So Los Angeles, the palm trees, the blue skies, the beaches, all the LA and California has to offer. And I moved there when I was 21 years young with an internship that eventually turned into a full-time gig. So I'm excited. I'm fired up. However, they don't tell you this, but 3,000 miles from home, you have little professional skills, you're homesick, you don't have fitness, you don't have energy, you don't have confidence. And really, when you break it down, I didn't have fitness in my life. So for the first couple of years of living in LA, I was not a fit guy. I just joke, I use the running joke that the CEO of an international fitness franchise called Fit Body Bootcamp was once allergic to lifting weights, and fast food the staple of his diet. So if I, can start there, my message to you is you are more capable than you can even imagine. But this all to say, I had more dark days than good. But to your point about, when did the fitness transformation come in? About 2 years into that journey, one of my best friends from university moved out west, and from Michigan to California is about 3,000 miles. It's the other side of the continent. So if you listeners out there realizing it's a completely huge move, even though the same country, very, very different culture, very different place. So we ended up living together when my friend moved out here for a period of a couple of years. And my friend Adam was his name. He was my first fitness mentor. And Adam had the six-pack abs, the glistening muscles. All the girls loved him. I certainly looked up to that. So after living together within a little bit of time, I finally mustered up enough courage to say, hey, Adam, will you teach me a little bit about this fitness game? And he obliged. And for the better part of 2 years, Louis, but really hyper-focused over 6 months, I trained with him. And he absolutely changed my life. What he did is he introduced me to circuit training, lifting weights, clean nutrition, but most importantly, he introduced me to coaching and accountability, which we just talked about. Coaching and accountability, that group support is mission critical for behavior change. And, following his guidance in that initial 6 months, I ended up dropping 20 pounds of body fat. I put 20 pounds of lean muscle, but way more than just getting the physical, attributes. Louis, it changed my life. I had more energy, more confidence, more enthusiasm. In fact, the sales role that I was in, I went from the least performing sales rep in the company all the way to the highest performing sales rep in the company. And one thing had changed. It wasn't the follow-up script. It wasn't this particular, aspect of the process. It was literally the way I showed up, the energy, the enthusiasm, the confidence. And what I realized going through that, I guess, experience is fitness is the foundation. For me, fitness is the foundation. The way I lead myself, I lead my family, I lead my, empire. It all starts with fitness. It starts with me as the foundation. And if my foundation is strong, if I'm healthy, I'm fit, if I mentally attune, then I can show up better for my team. I can show up better for my family. I can show up better for my clients. So to kind of put a bow on it, this is why I am so passionate about fitness in our industry, because it's the foundation for my success.
I think that really ties in nicely with what we just covered as well at the beginning, because when you talk about that, that rolls straight back into what we said about having a strong mentor, having someone that you look up to. And that could literally be someone in the gym who you think you want to aspire to in terms of that regime and that body. Because I've always found, I think you'll probably agree here and stuff, but, feel free to, say something else. But I've always found that at least, a fit body is a reflection of like every aspect of that person's life to some degree. So like when you see someone who's got the, that body, the abs, the rippling muscles, fit and everything, usually that's probably a sign that that person is pretty locked in on good habits, right? And the opposite is also true. So I like how that ties back in with what you said about finding that mentor and having someone that you can look up to, even if it is just someone at the local gym. So you can find them anywhere. It doesn't have to be someone online, right? You can just find that person pretty quite close to home, I'd imagine, eh?
Totally. And it's interesting. There's so many tie-ins there because in Adam, in that particular moment in time, he had something that I wanted in terms of fitness success. So specifically, I gained his mentorship specifically for this. The additional tie-on is, people ask me all the time, Bryce, how do you be a better leader? And there's a lot of different ways. Leadership is a skill. It's developed with time. But the first way is to be able to lead yourself. And to your point, when you're fit, and actually here in the States, I use this, I guess, metric, 80% of our population is either statistically obese or overweight. So by just being lean and healthy, just being a healthy human, going to the gym a few times a week and eating well and having a healthy weight, you are more qualified from a leadership perspective over 80% of the population to lead yourself. And guess what? Guess what? When people realize that you can lead yourself, then you are more qualified to lead other people. So that naturally gravitates to better leadership. The second thing, take it even a step further. If you actually look like you work out, meaning not only are you a healthy weight, but you lift weights and you actually watch what you eat, you're in a training program, you'll be more fit than 99% of the people. When you walk in the room, not only from a physiologically, from a mental, confidence perspective, but it's very clear you send a message to everyone that you can lead you, therefore you can lead others. So boom, putting a little bow on that. I love that.
Yeah, it's a great piece. I totally agree. It's so true. I can't add anything to that. But okay, so let's get into the thick of the business then. So you've led the sales of 175 million in professional coaching services. You found your fitness journey. You got into fitness. You found gym buddy. What happened then? How does the business start? Talk us through that. What's the vision there? How did it evolve?
Love it. Well, I'm going to tell you two stories because it's interesting. I am the CEO of our organization, but I'm not the founder. In fact, the founder is my business partner and dear friend and mentor, actually, to this day. His name is Bedros Keuilian. So I'm going to tell you two stories and how they kind of intertwine, if you will, because they're all culminate into launching this business success. So back in 2008, this is right after here in the States, the Great Recession with the real estate kind of collapse and the financial markets collapse. My business partner was in the fitness space, and he was a very successful one-on-one personal trainer. But then what happened was in 2008, when the Great Recession happened, people's financial situations changed. So he was accustomed to training one-on-one. However, when that happened, people didn't have, the high premium to be able to pay a trainer one-on-one, or at least in the volume they did. So what he decided to do, he had to change his business model. Instead of training, clients one-on-one that would cost $1,000 on a monthly basis or $1,500, he changed the model to group personal training in parks, kind of boot camps in parks. So that way, for a fraction of the cost, $200 a month versus 2,000 or something similar, someone could get access to a personal trainer and he'd still be able to have clients. So that was from a visionary and entrepreneur step. He changed that business model. And what happened was it started gaining success. So from 2008 to 2009, in 2010, the model changed from one-on-one private training to group training in parks. But then what happened is here in Southern California, we have very, very nice weather, but other parts in the country, it's too hot or too cold. We have rain and wind and all that. So the vision was, how can we take this particular group training model and put it in indoors so that way, a fitness professional can, train clients. It doesn't matter if it's cold or hot. So what we did was we started renting space from cheerleading studios, which cheerleading studios only used their particular facilities in the afternoons after school. In the mornings, they were wide open. So that was the first innovation. So that happened in 2009 into 2010. And the business model actually started to continue to work. But then what happened, what we realized is because there was a lot of demand for people wanting that group training, people also wanted to train in the afternoons. And we realized we didn't have space in the afternoons at the cheerleading spots because that's when they needed, their space after school for kids. So that was the vision then, to take this particular model and then adjust it to creating, standalone brick and mortar locations, proper locations. And that was the birth, if you will, the business model of Fit Body Bootcamp, to have standing locations for boot camp sessions that could be performed in the mornings and the evenings in a self-contained location. So that was the vision of what was happening in terms of the foundation of the franchise. As I was going through my own journey, as I was going through my own, I guess, entrepreneur journey, wanting to launch my own business. So to pick up the story from what I just mentioned, after I went through my own physical transformation, it was about a year later when some guy walks up to me at the gym. And the first time, Louis, I was like, oh my God, I could probably give the gift of fitness back to other people. He walked up to me and he introduced himself and he asked me a bunch of questions about how I lift weights and my nutrition program. And I realized, oh man, I could give the gift of fitness back to others. So that's when I started then to enroll myself in the National Academy of Sports Medicine, which is the gold standard here in the States of certified personal training. And I became a personal trainer. I thought, you know what, I could train clients in the nights and weekends. So that was the plan. And right around that time, when I updated my Facebook profile, a personal trainer, I started receiving ads from, you guessed it, my business partner, the founder of Fit Body Bootcamp, talking about how to launch a business, how to grow a personal training location, and how to get clients better result. So I ended up opting into his particular advertisement, started following along, and then started researching this little brand that was a licensee program at the time that was transitioning into a full brick and mortar fitness business called Fit Body Bootcamp. And this is in 2012 by the time this materialized. So I put in an expression of interest. I talked to, I think there's about 5 or 6 other franchise partners in the brand at the time. This is the very first year the brand was franchised. And in the summer of 2012, I did the most exciting, but also the most terrifying decision in my life. And I invested my life savings in this little dream of business ownership called Fit Body Bootcamp after I met my business partner and founder, Bedros, at the company headquarters here in Chino Hills, the suburb of Los Angeles. So that was actually how I entered into the brand as a franchise partner. And Louis, there's a lot of lowlights and learning lessons and entrepreneurial battle scars, but I'm going to tell you the highlights right now. So for the period of 2012 to 2018, I ended up scaling to a handful of locations. I made it a family affair. I brought my wife on board, my brother on board, my mom on board, my sister on board. We scaled to a lot of locations, made it a 7-figure business. And that was my vision. Actually, my vision was to have 10 locations. I was about halfway through. And this is about 2018 then, when our brand was really starting to grow in terms of exponential growth. And Bedros, not my business partner at the time, but the founder of the franchise, who had been working, coaching, and consulting with, that had made these pivots and created the infrastructure of the brand, knew that he wanted more owner influence because he's an incredible, strong visionary and entrepreneur. He'll be the first one to tell you he's not an operations guy. So he wanted someone that had success, that had an owner's mindset. And ultimately, he reached out to me to offer me the vice president role, which then eventually landed into the CEO role. So that's really, if you take a step back, how the vision of Fit Body Bootcamp happened initially with my business partner, how I got connected as a franchise partner. Even before that, how I started my own endeavors, being a broke, out of shape, alcoholic. And that's the story, how this broke, out of shape alcoholic ended up becoming the CEO of an international fitness franchise. So that's the basis, that's the foundation. And certainly I'm open to continued dialogue, my friend.
So freaking cool. And this is exciting on so many personal levels too, because I've got a background in sport. I was a tennis player from 4 to about 19 professionally. COVID, caused problems. I had my own struggle. And then I've been running my own business and started this podcast recently too, and it's been going really well. But actually, funnily enough, following in your footsteps, because I'm actually getting my level 2 and 3 personal training right now. I've finished all my coursework stuff. I'm getting my exam done this weekend, man. So
Nice.
this is exciting because it's like, hey, you know what? That's what you did. So maybe one day something similar will happen for me, and I'm excited about the journey. But I know that fitness is a great space to be in. But okay, so a bit more on that business then. So I guess this most simple, but I guess the best question I can really ask about it is just how did it get so big? Like it's huge, man. So how did it scale so much?
Oh man, well, I want to, give my founder and business partner Bedros a shout out. He's an incredible visionary entrepreneur, sales and marketer, to lay the foundation. And I would just say through a lot of determination and passion, we've been able to, bring on awesome franchise partners who, are coachable, who are growth mindset, and also too who are passionate about people and fitness. And I would say our business model in the coaching space, we are in the people business way more than even the fitness business. It's about building relationships, creating connectivity, building community. I mean, we talked about it. It's just this reoccurring message in the podcast. It's about having a strong network, having a strong support system. And we've been able to do that. So by pouring into our franchise partners, making them successful, pouring into their leadership and their marketing, their sales training, their coaching training, making their coaches, the best fitness coaches in North America. That's the foundation, right? And then when we're able to do that and support our franchise partners, then in turn, they get their clients, way better support. Their, clients receive better fitness and fat loss results. So because of that, word of mouth marketing grows. So it's been a huge focus on, building support, building systems and processes and really infrastructure to make our franchise partners and our coaches successful. And they in turn to do that. And when you do that, when you're aligned on mission and when you really, bring on people that are passionate, which I love about the fitness industry, because typically speaking, it's a very passionate based industry because many times people just like me who are in pain, who are in struggle, and then they go through this transformation, guess what? Transform people, transform people. So that transformation path continues. So I think big picture, that was probably a lot to digest, but these are many reasons and more on how we were able to kind of scale and really grow and be at a point where we're at right now.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I can see that for sure. I don't know if forgive me if I'm wrong, it's 112 episodes now, so I may be wrong, but I don't think I've had anyone on the show who's really had such a strong franchise such as you so far. So you talk about bringing people on in the franchise scheme. So how do you do that? I mean, in kind of like, in a nutshell, when you're looking for franchise partners, what's the process there? What's that flow chart in terms of finding them? Do they come to you? Do you advertise positions? What does that kind of look like from a business perspective in terms of like starting up or developing a franchise business and finding the right people to suit what you're looking for with that vision for the growth of that business then?
Yeah, that's an incredible question. That's a question, Louis, that I could probably unpack for hours. I want to give you a little bit more of a tangible, I guess, example. So that way, if an member is listening, this is like, all right, how do I unpack and build and sell and market a franchise, which is very, very challenging? How about if I can actually just take that and bring that down? And how can I attract a new teammate, attract someone new to your organization, train them, and then get them good at their craft? And I'm going to start actually by how we attract our fitness coaches, because our fitness coaches are the nucleus of our organization. The stronger our fitness coaches, the stronger the location, the stronger the franchise partner, the stronger the headquarters and the brand. So we didn't always have this process, but now we have developed this internship process, which we call our new coaches, internship onboarding playbook. So it's a 12-week internship program where we, reach out to different areas like, we use social media, we use our clients as well. We also use, different job boards here in the United States to advertise, this particular internship. And it's a very structured 12-week program. So, we bring a new intern in, we give them video training online online training, our learning management system to make sure they are indoctrinated with our culture, with our core values, have a good understanding of the organization. And that training is so important. Standard, it's put on the LMS. There's standard videos in that particular training. So that way a fitness coach in New York or a fitness coach in Florida or a fitness coach in California, which are completely different sides of the country, they can receive that standardized training, which is mission critical. It also includes not only learning manual, but also tactical, boots on the ground type of training. So we're in the fitness space. So getting them on the microphone, having them practice leading sessions. It also starts with a mock interview, tryout, if you will. So we give them a sample workout. We actually give them video recordings. And instead of just bringing them on or hiring them, or just even after a conversation, we actually bring them into the studio and then have them execute the mock training plan. They were given the entire guidance. The big question is, were they prepared? Did they put some planning into this? And you can very quickly tell if someone's taken this seriously or not. And if they plan, they prep, it's going to show, and they pass the next step of the process. So all this to say, having a really built-in, dialed-in onboarding process in the front end with proper training, proper expectations has been an absolute game changer, in addition to the hands-on tactical training, and then having a touch point on a weekly basis with that particular general manager and the head coach to make sure the intern coach is getting good feedback. They have an acknowledgement what they're doing well, and also what's the opportunity for improve. So that's at the baseline level, Louis, the foundational training process and how we bring in new coaches. And then we mimic and model that particular same process on how we can bring the best franchise partners in through an application process. So this all to say, I would say if you're listening to this and you're looking to expand and grow, you need to actually start making sure that the foundational level of your organization is solid. When you bring on new teammates to your organization, do you have a proper training program? Are they indoctrinating the culture, the mission, the vision, the values? And do they have proper training and also a platform of feedback? Because when you do that, the ground level, then what happens is you develop stronger people that become stronger managers, that become stronger owners, and it all works up the chain. And I share this with you to kind of put a bow on it. Out of vulnerability, we didn't have this particular training program, this nucleus, if you will, to our organization from the day one. It probably wasn't until about 5 years in the organization, to about 2018, 2019, that we really started to, step up, develop our systems and processes. And because of that, it's been able to allow us to scale at a quicker rate.
I love it. I love it. Love it. Love it. This is one of the coolest businesses I think I've heard on this podcast, man. It's great. I know we're a little bit short on time, but I'd be remiss not to ask the question that's kind of bouncing around my head right now. Obviously, it looks like it's very US based right now, but do you see this potentially going international? Any plans for that kind of a thing with this franchise, or where are we at with that?
That is the vision, my friend. My vision is Fit Body Bootcamp will be known as the best fitness and fat loss program on the planet. So I want to start there. Boom. This in mind, we still have our work cut out for us here in North America. So we have nearly 300 locations, and we could probably double in size here on the home front. So in terms of our priorities and next action steps is really to fill out North America, and then we'll probably be hitting the UK and Australia for future years, but
Beautiful.
we're still a few years off of that.
Beautiful, man. That's exactly what I want to hear. Okay, right. Let's roll on to these last two questions then. So, from a consumer's standpoint, then let's do this in a two-part thing. Then, so someone listening in, I think we're at about 45%, 47%, maybe even United States-based listeners. So this would be very relevant for quite a few people over there, but obviously for everyone too. So, in terms of actionable stuff, like you've mentioned, we're overridden with an obesity just wash over right now, and a diet crisis, man, around the whole world. And there's no denying it. It's a horrible situation to be in. But in your words and experience, how would you say, for someone who's like in amongst all of that, or where you were back then, what would you say to them in terms of getting them back onto the good path, getting them onto a new change? And the two parts of that one is also, from a consumer's standpoint, what can they expect from Fit Body Bootcamp, and how can they get involved, and how would that maybe change their lives in terms of getting involved in the fitness space?
Yeah, well, I think it's just taking inventory. Where are you struggling at? Where do you need help? And being vulnerable. I shared a very vulnerable story from you with you about my own, addiction and alcohol, and in the story that really made me see the light and then, take action. And for me, it was pain. So I give a keynote. If you want to get your purpose, you have to identify your pain, overcome that, make it your passion, and then eventually you can make it your purpose. So if you're struggling right now with fitness or with health or with addiction, just take a step back, journal, be honest with yourself, write that down. We talked a little bit about the value of, coaching, group accountability, and the support. That's what you have specifically for fitness. Now, if you're, interested in, if you have a drug problem, then I certainly can't help you right now. I can from a support system and just, overall experiential situation. But from a business perspective, my business is helping clients with their health, their fitness, and their mindset. So, if you're looking to lose weight, if you want to have more mental clarity, if you want to have more energy, if you want to drop, 15, 20, 30 pounds, not only do you have to have that mental inventory, but, reach out. And in our particular program, we have a very welcoming program. We understand that fitness is a very vulnerable space. People are coming in because they don't like the way they look. They don't like the way they feel. So it's really important even for us to understand what business that we're really in. I think it's a great takeaway for your audience. Yes, we're in the fitness space here at Fit Body Bootcamp, but we're really the space that we're in. We're in the relationship space. We're in the confidence space. That's what people are coming to us for. So we need to have a welcoming environment. We need to lift people up. We need to give them tactical mindset, fitness, nutrition advice, but we also need to, fill their soul, give them a lot of love and support. So it's really important, I guess, to answer your question, Louis, about what our clients can expect. That's what they can expect. But really the big message here, if you're trying to service a client, understand what business they're really in. Okay, what problems and pain points can you serve, and then how can you exceed expectations? How can you continue to level up your service to give them more of the big value add and wow, so they want to continue to buy in your community? And that's a question that we ask ourselves here at Fit Body Bootcamp all the time, and a good piece of recommendation for you and for us as we continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I love it. It's great advice, man. So towards that last question, then I think if there's one thing that I've really taken away from listening to your backstory too, is that I think one of the pieces I really liked about all of it was where I kind of asked you about how you made that change and if you could have done it by yourself. And your answer kind of surprised me a bit when you sort of said that, hey, you know what, actually, no, but also yes. Like I had to do half the work. Like I had to make that decision for myself to make that change initially and everything. And I think that's a great piece because I think, from come out with my own quote here and stuff, but you have to meet change halfway. So, you have to have that team, you have to have that support group and stuff, but you always have to make that change initially. So if we're going into that last question, it would be about leadership, both outwardly and also within. So, for teams, sports people, business owners, the people listening in, both in and amongst that culture of a team in a business or wherever, but also kind of you to you. What makes a good leader, in your opinion? Are they born? Are they made? And where do you start to kind of develop that aspect of yourself if you don't think you're a leader? And I mean, personally, I think it starts from within, but how would you go and do that, in your opinion? Kind of walk us through it.
Love it. I would say it's twofold answer. Number one, leadership is a skill, just like learning to speak, learning a language. It's just a skill. You can learn how to be more influential. As an example, being able to give feedback, being able to clearly communicate, being able to cast a vision, be able to provide and transfer energy. These are all tactical things that what constitutes a strong leader. Okay, but they're all learned skills first and foremost. Now, do I think that some people have more of a factory installed ability to be a stronger leader than others? I do, but I think anyone can be a stronger leader. And my framework is lead yourself, lead your family, lead your empire. It starts with you. So if you're listening to this and like, how can I be a better leader? Number one, as we talked about, get fit. When you get fit, and not only just, be a healthy weight, look like you work out. No one should ever have to ask you, do you lift weights? That is the best way, okay, to be a leader of yourself, first and foremost. The second thing, and this kind of goes within the fitness realm, is level of discipline. You have to be able to be disciplined. If you are not disciplined as a person, and discipline is a muscle, you can get better at it with time. Just if you're thinking to yourself, I'm not disciplined, I can't do this. Well, you're not disciplined now. However, you can build momentum. All right. Just like me, before 2007, I never went to the gym. I would say I was undisciplined. However, I started and I didn't all of a sudden become Arnold Schwarzenegger overnight. It took time, reps and sets with time. So give yourself some space, but discipline is a quality of strong leadership. The other big quality in the framework that I teach around leadership is you have to own it. You can't be a strong leader and you can't be pointing fingers at other people. At the end of the day, the buck stops with you from a leadership lens. So if you want to be a stronger leader, you have to resist the human urge to point fingers, to cast blame, and you have to realize if it has to be, it's up to me. So focus on your fitness, focus on your discipline, focus on taking extreme ownership and accountability. Those are the foundations for strong leadership. And of course, there's a lot of other skill sets. I guess the last point that I'll leave you around leadership on that particular journey, I just gave you a framework to really create the foundation. But as you be a better leader of self, and as you become more qualified to then lead your family, then as you become more qualified to lead an empire, what I realized is a lot of times leadership is about who you are than more than what you say or recommend. Okay, it's who you are, it's how you show up. Think to yourself, okay, of an incredible leader. Think about all the qualities that leader has. This is what I literally have done. I took a step back and I realized, probably about 10 years ago, I want to be a better leader. So this is a common thing back in the podcast. Who then do I need to seek leadership advice on? Really, who it was is who do I want to follow as a person? What I realize is I just need to build someone that I admire. And if I build some characteristic, quality by quality, that other people admire, guess what? I'll have influence, which really, when you break it down, more, nothing less, in the words of John Maxwell. So if you build someone that another person admires, well, guess what? You will have influence. You will have a better leader. I'll give you an example of a few things I wrote down years ago, okay, to be a better leader. Can I be more trustworthy? Can I be more impeccable with my word? Can I be more disciplined? Can I be more solution minded? How can I create better relationships? How can I create better preparation? How can I create more consistency? These are just a few of the list items that I wrote down that I value in other people. And I thought to myself, if I can just make a list of all the things that I value, characteristics and qualities that I admire in other people, and I start modeling those and incorporating those characteristics, those qualities in my own self, well, then by default, I will be a better leader. And Louis, to put a bow on this, I have, and I continue to do so. The beautiful part about it is leadership, it's a journey. Okay. Yes, I've acquired a lot of leadership skills over the last 15 years of leading myself, leading my business, leading this global empire. But taking a white belt mentality, I still have a lot of growth and learning ahead of me. When we, sit down and have a conversation a year, 5 years, I better be a better leader than I am today. And that's really what I want to leave you from a leadership framework. It's about building the foundation. It's about, having discipline, taking ownership, working on your own fitness. And then lastly, building qualities and characteristics that you admire other people, incorporating them in you. That, my friend, will make you a strong leader.
I love it. As you say, man, that puts the bow on it. That's great stuff. The very last thing that I ask the guests now, notoriously out of just tradition now, really, I think this would be great. This would be a great one for you. It's the very last little question, but if you time this right back to the beginning, if you right now, if you had a minute to speak to young you, 12-year-old you on the streets of LA, running around the streets of LA, and just have that minute to give a little bit of advice, or just that one, you're in Back to the Future, whatever episode we're on now, whatever movie you're on now, and you just have that minute to say something to young you, what would it be? What would be that bit of advice you could give?
Don't drink alcohol. Love on people, realizing that relationships are everything. They're the foundation of you. Lead yourself, study discipline, study leadership, and take responsibility for your life, because no one is coming to save you. You must save yourself. And the time is now. My younger version of myself, Bryce Henson.
I love it, man. Perfect. All right, dude. That's been the questions today. Before we wrap it up, shameless plug. So I think a load of people are going to want to see more from you, and all the little clips are going to come out with and everything from this podcast and stuff. But yeah, take a minute, man. Promote anything that you're working on, the social media, website. Just send our people over to wherever we can get started and find more about all the stuff that you get up to.
Well, I love it. Well, I appreciate you. This has been a great conversation. Two best ways: my company's website, fitbodybootcamp.com. That's fitbodybootcamp.com. Learn more about our organization. But if you want to continue to follow along with me, whether my own podcast or on social, IG and all that, my handle is Real Bryce Henson, not to be confused with Fake Bryce Henson. Would be happy to continue to add value. Louis, man, really appreciate, love your energy, love your vibe. This has been a great conversation.
Yeah, man, it's been great. I've really enjoyed having you on. It's been a really good conversation. And yeah, thank you guys for listening. This was episode 112. If you'd like to listen to the past episodes, go and have a look at the channel. And if you'd like to listen in for the future ones, make sure to hit the subscribe button and spread some love by leaving a like and a comment. Signing off for now. Good night, people, and fights on. See you in the next episode.